Okay, tonight we are all here, as the Mayor and Council mentioned, to talk about something that's very, very important for our community. And on behalf of the Mayor and Council, as well as all of the department directors and senior staff members that are here, I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. You know, we had 3 general obligation bond forms back in February, and we had well over 300 folks that made those forms. And from those forums, we received a lot of input from those that attended, and I see a lot of familiar faces here tonight that have taken the time to come back out. So once again, on behalf of the Mayor and Council, thank you. What I want to mention tonight is, or what the goals are for all of us, is first and foremost, is we want to explain the general obligation bond process. This is not something that the city does, but every few years. And so I'm going to take a little bit of time and walk through the process. Secondly is that after I finish my presentation, as it was mentioned by the Mayor and Council, we encourage you to go around to the different stations and talk to the directors and the senior staff members that are here to learn more about the projects that right now are what I would call above the cut line and what has been moved below the cut line. Because as the Mayor mentioned, we started off with about $280 to $85 million worth of projects. In order to make this a no tax increase, which was the directive of the City Council, we've got to lower that to under $211 million. So right now we're about $10.5 to $11 million over being able to accomplish the Council's goal. So looking at those projects that are below the cut line is important. There are also several projects above the cut line that we're going to have to make some very difficult decisions. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you where we are and what action steps are left in the process to get us to the August 28th general obligation bond vote. What is a general obligation bond? To me, a general obligation bond what they do is they serve as the way for our community to raise funds for projects. And what happens is that revenue creates a stream of income that allows for us to pay for projects. Those projects can fall into a number of different categories. It could be public safety, it could be streets, it could be quality of life or parks, it could be stormwater, or it could be public facilities. General obligation, the general obligation bonds that we will issue if the voters approved, we'll take those monies received from the taxpayers and we will reinvest them back into the community in forms of projects. And so tonight we're going to learn a little bit more about that. Now, the first thing I want to mention is, this has been said throughout the process, is that general obligation bonds are the only large source of funding the city has available to pay for capital improvement projects. For example, to widen a 2-lane road to 5-lane without any major drainage projects is around $5 million. So the city does not have any other revenue source that we have available to do the type of capital improvements that are necessary to maintain and reinvest in the infrastructure that we have for our community. So this is a very, very important process for us as a community to make these type of decisions. Once again, as you travel around the room and you talk to the different directors, you'll find out that this package focuses on streets, both the widening of streets, the maintenance of streets. It focuses on public facilities. There are several entities here that can talk to you about the facilities that we're proposing. For example, for the Veterans Facility, as well as the annex for the Senior Citizen Facility. Also being proposed is 2 new fire stations over the next 10 years. And so public facilities are very, very important. Quality of life, there are projects in the package for parks, playground equipment, which are very important to all of us. There's both passive and active recreation improvements being proposed. And also, there is a number of projects being proposed that are actually going to address economic development to help our community be a community that people want to come and make investments in. We've looked at this very comprehensively to make sure that the roads and the stormwater systems will help those schools that are still to be built, because we do have a large school district and we want to make sure that we can accommodate the growth as it happens within our community. Broken Arrow has a long history of supporting general obligation bond packages. For example, the last 3 packages, which were 2008, 2011, and 2014, provided $142 million worth of projects in our community. That went for the streets, the parks, the stormwater, city facilities, public safety facilities, and that has resulted in us right now being a growing community, people want to come to. And right now we are the 4th largest community in the state of Oklahoma and growing every day. As Councilman Parks mentioned, we are around 115, I think, when the 2020 census hits. And so we continue to see growth in our community, and it's our responsibility as the elected and the appointed officials to make sure we're looking to the future, that we can make those infrastructure investments to continue to make us a quality community and to be able to accommodate the growth that we know we're going to experience in our city. Here's a quick comment. Our citizen surveys that we did last fall indicated that maintaining infrastructure is a top priority for the city of Broken Arrow. Last fall, the City Council commissioned a citizens community survey to assess the citizen satisfaction with the delivery of the services that we provide, and also to seek input on the city's priorities to make sure that they're aligned with what the residents believe the needs are in our community. We found out that over 2,500 folks responded to that survey, and 94% of the respondents had a very positive feeling about the Broken Arrow community. Overall, the residents that responded to the survey had a very positive feeling about the direction the city was going, and also felt like that the quality of services that we received were outstanding. Here are the results of those surveys. As you can see, is that there's a very high level of satisfaction from those that responded about the quality of the services and the priorities that the City Council need to take into consideration. You notice the lowest one we had there was street maintenance. Obviously, when you see this package, you will notice that over 60% of the proposed package is full of street, for actually the widening of streets, the maintaining of intersections, and the rehabilitation of streets within our neighborhoods. The percentage of respondents talks about what they would strongly support. This is the response that we got from those responded to the survey. 97% felt that storm drain projects were important, streets, almost 97%, public facilities, public safety projects, and then quality of life. So you could see that the residents felt very strongly that the city should be focusing on this, and that's when you see the package, if you haven't already, you will notice that there has been a tremendous and proposed investment in each one of these areas. Let me take this opportunity to mention that there are many great things happening in our community right now, and let's talk about them just briefly. Because of the investment that the city has made in its infrastructure and public safety, as well as all the service we provide, we've received a number of accolades over the last couple of years talking about the quality of life within our community. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention those tonight. Most recently in USA Today, just a couple of months ago, we received word that the Rose District was named one of the 50 most charming main streets in America. And I've always believed that your main street is always the hub, like a wheel, is that's where the core of everything starts and things work out from there. Last fall, USA Today determined that Broken Arrow was the 29th most livable city in America, which means that between the quality of life, the education system from our 3 school districts, our infrastructure, the commitment that we have to providing quality public services, we were determined to be one of the best places in this country to live in America. And what's interesting, we were 29th and Edmond was 35th. So it tells you that there are a couple of communities in Oklahoma that are making those type of investments. Before we talk about tonight's package, I think that it would be important to mention some of the general obligation projects that are currently underway that you, the voters, have approved previously. So let's take a quick look at those. Once again, infrastructure is extremely important. In 2018, just a couple of weeks ago, the City Council awarded a contract for 9th Street, which is also known as Lynn Lane, to widen that from flight safety to 81st, from 2 lanes to 5 lanes, to create that corridor that we need to move traffic out of our most congested area where our commerce is. That project should be done in the early part of 2019. 2019, County Line Road, a very important project from 71st to 81st, which is basically from Kenosha to Houston. We will be replacing the bridge there and widening that road to 5 lanes. That's a $17.2 million project that is being funded with federal dollars, as well as a local match of over $3 million from the city. We also have other projects that we're going to be funding through general bond obligation approvals. That's Olive 129th from Albany 61st to Kenosha to 71st. We'll also be looking at Washington from Garnett to Olive, which is a road widening to 5 lanes, and we can roll through the pictures now, Jen. In 2020, we'll be looking at Kenosha. I get a lot of requests of when's the city going to widen Kenosha from Main Street to Dade or the Quick Trip, and that's a 4-lane road that's very congested. In 2020, we're actually going to complete that project. And then in 2020, we're also looking at widening New Orleans from 2 lanes to 3 lanes from Aspen to Olive. And then finally, 61st or Albany from Lynn Lane to County Line Road. And my point in bringing this up is that to get to these projects to construction, and as you can see the amount of traffic that we experience, it takes about 3 years to complete a road project. And so when the voters approve the funding, it actually takes about a year for right-of-way, it takes about a year to complete the plans and specifications, and then road construction usually lasts about a year. And so you can see this is an evolution or an ongoing process to make sure that we always have projects in the queue to make sure that we're maintaining and expanding our infrastructure in order to accommodate the growth of our community. We also have, let's go on to some general street maintenance. I see some folks here that are very concerned about street maintenance and their development. There was funds approved in the last 2 bond packages to complete street maintenance this summer. Actually, Lancaster Park is just about complete and should be completed within the next few weeks this summer. Wolf Creek is going to see a major upgrade in their streets, about $1.7 million if you live in that area. And also in the spring of next year, Arrow Springs is also going to see a major investment in their streets. It's important to know that this package you're going to look at has $25 million committed for general street maintenance of our neighborhoods. You know, the bottom line is that a street and neighborhood under normal conditions only lasts about 20 years. And so you have to have a plan to be able to do the maintenance to extend that life, or when it reaches its useful life, like you see here, that you have funds available to go in and to replace those slabs or to do a major overlay where it's asphalt. And the funds in this package combined with our Vision TAC funds is going to give us millions of dollars a year to be able to attack the streets that need to be maintained in our great community. We also have parks and recreation improvements currently going underway. Here's just a couple of projects. Leisure Park is going to get a new playground and a splash pad this year, and Country Air Park is also going to get a new playground. It's important to mention that the fact that, you know, it just can't always be about asphalt and concrete. I mean, if this total package was $200 million of streets, I promise you in 5 years, people would be going, when are we going to build the parks? When are you going to fix the parks? And so the key here is to find the right mixture, the right combination of infrastructure with your quality of life projects. And you'll notice from this package, it's not just building swings or teeter-totters, as I used to call them. It's got money in there for walkability and to improve the extension of walkways and paths to tie our community together. Here's a question that I get asked a lot of times is why do general obligation bonds? Well, to me, it's very straightforward and simple. My experience and statistics, more importantly, show that infrastructure investments are directly connected to both the overall quality of life in a community and the economic success of your community. If you don't have an infrastructure system that can accommodate your community, you're going to have trouble maintaining a quality community, which means you have to be able to at times ask your citizens to reinvest in your streets, in your parks, in your water and sewer, and so forth. And you also have to be looking for and forward thinking about where there's potential for development to make sure that those that want to make those investments here have access to major corridors so they can move their goods and services to and from their customers. And what we've done in this package is we've looked at where there is potential for development, and we've made sure that there are funds available to be able to accommodate the growth that we believe is going to happen within our community over the next decade. Also, why do general obligation bonds? It's real simple. All infrastructure has a life expectancy, and a plan is needed for replacement. What is before you this evening is that tentative plan. Secondly, general obligation projects, they keep Broken Arrow a great place to live, work, and to do business. I mean, this is a quality community, folks, and it's because of those of you that have been here for many years that have made those investments to keep it this way. And then finally, general obligation bonds are the only significant source of funding for major capital investments within our city. Okay, the goals of the package. Let me just stop right here and say a great deal of time went into preparing this package, and I'll talk a little about the process in just a few minutes. We started this process like anything you do when you're talking about long-range plans. What are the goals and objectives of this plan, because many residents are going to ask, are you just kind of doing this willy-nilly and haven't given any consideration to how you're asking to spend our tax dollars? Well, we spent a considerable time coming up with goals and objectives. I'm going to talk about those in just a minute. What we did was we tried to take a long view of where Broken Arrow is today and where we think it will be 10 years from now. And that, some people say, well, that's kind of hard to do. But if this package was just 5-year package instead of 10-year package, I promise you all those projects that weren't included in year 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they'd be right back up on the drawing board at that time. These are projects that we know that we're going to have to do in the next 10 years. And so we're trying to put together a long-range plan. And I think that's important to note because it's very consistent with what the City Council has done the last 2.5 years. For example, 2 years ago, the City Council approved a 10-year capital improvement plan for the utility department to look at potable water delivery, to look at upgrading the sanitary sewer system, the stormwater system, okay? And we have a plan for replacing those improvements that are so vital to us every single day to make sure we have clean water, and then whenever you flush a stool or you wash your clothes, that water ends up at the plant, it's treated and goes back into the tributary in accordance with all EPA standards. We've also in the process of updating our comprehensive plan. There's been a lot of feedback about the plan. How will we develop? What is important to the community? At the same time, Scott Esmond is leading an initiative to upgrade our master plan for Parks and Recreation. And then finally, we're studying a long-range plan for our drinking water. Right now, we have enough water to meet our peak demand between what's being produced at the plant as well as the connection with Tulsa. But based on current projections, in about 5 to 7 years, we could have trouble meeting our peak demand. And so we're already looking at what we need to do to expand the plant to be able to accommodate that peak demand, that time in August where if you get 7 to 10 days in a row of 100-degree weather when we're needing 30 to 32 million gallons of water a day, so we don't have to do any rationing. We're already starting that process now of looking at how do we make sure that we can accommodate the water needs of a community of 115,000 and growing. And then finally, a couple of years ago, the citizens approved a repurposing of the vision tax to give us about $3.5 million a year to do the street maintenance. And we are putting together and going to present to the City Council this spring a 5-year increment plan on doing neighborhood maintenance in our neighborhoods to make sure that we're going in and we're doing the mills and overlays, the slurry seals to extend the life of those streets. We have the money now to do that, and it's our responsibility to come with the plan, and we'll be presenting that to the Council during the budget process this year. Now quickly, here are the goals of our plan. First and foremost, it's the upgrade and expansion of our transportation network. Now, I call transportation network, that's a technical term for our street capacity. And that's just a fancy word that they like to use. To me, it's like the capacity of our streets. The first and foremost is to continue widen major arterial roads. There are a number of roads in this package, as well as those that you saw just a minute ago, that we're widening from 2 lanes to 5 lanes. And we're just not going to widen a road from 2 to 5 because we want to go from 2 to 5. We've looked at the traffic counts. We've looked at the data to determine exactly where there is growth and how to accommodate that growth to make sure that we maximize the dollars that we're going to have for widening roads. Secondly is we want to make sure we combine the funding that's being presented to take care of the streets within the neighborhoods. Once again, there's $25 million being proposed for neighborhood improvements. Something else that's all important to us is traffic signals. As we grow, there's going to be a need to install new traffic signals. We have an idea where several of those signals should go. To put a new traffic signal in, from the time you start to design the plans until you to energize the light, it's about $250,000. $250,000 is what it costs to put a traffic signal. The one we just put up here on Albany was around $250,000. Could be more depending on the right-of-way you need to be able to accommodate the traffic to continue to move it when you put the light in. Also, we've done some upgrades in the lighting to put the flashing left yellows to move traffic. We've got a plan to do some more of those. And then finally, as our city grows, we're going to need to coordinate and sync the lights to be able to move traffic. We hear a lot of complaints about the fact that it seems like it takes forever to get through this corridor or that corridor. Well, we're trying to look forward and say we need to make sure that we signalize those lights to be able to move traffic in a very thorough and timely way. Secondly is, amen, I hear that. I'm sorry folks, I take this pretty serious, so I'm not much humor. Public safety is very important. Maintain a high level of public safety, responsiveness, and effectiveness. Obviously, you know, the city has about 170 firefighters, and we have about a like number of police officers. It's very important if you want to have a great community, you have to make a focus on public safety. This package does that. Over the next 10 years, we're proposing 2 new fire stations. One's going to be a replacement for Station 7. We've already purchased the land at the intersection of Washington and Main right there, 91st, right just south of the softball complex there. We purchased that land. This will be a replacement station for Station 7 that's on Elm Place. And then second station, it could be we could move central further to the northeast, or based on the growth, we may decide that we're going to need that station in the northeast part of the city. But we know in the next 10 years we're going to need another station. Secondly is that you've got to maintain your apparatus. You have to replace your fire trucks, your ambulances, to make sure that we have great equipment to get to anybody that needs help. Third is we need those early warning detection sirens. Obviously, there's a few months out of the year when we're susceptible to the weather, and we want to make sure that all of our sirens are the state-of-the-art, so we can try to provide that notice to those that are outdoors if in fact they need to take cover. And also, we need improvements to our jail and our police training facility. I will point out, if somebody asks, why aren't there any police vehicles in here? We purchase police vehicles and other, what I would call small police equipment, out of our small pay-as-you-go capital fund. So we're not forgetting about our police officers. It's hard to bond for new police vehicles in this type of package. It really drives up the amount of millage you would use. And so we do have funds this year. This coming year, we're going to spend between $650,000 to $700,000 out of our sales tax fund to buy new police cars, to keep that cycling, to make sure that our officers have great vehicles to drive. Number 3 is we're looking to enhance economic development, neighborhood revitalization, and citizen mobility. The improvements that we're making, they're just not softball complexes or baseball complexes. That's very important, but what we heard from the folks is we want the passive and the active recreation. So you'll see a lot of various projects. Neighborhood parks, $80,000, $90,000 to redo the park in the neighborhood because the equipment is aged or needs to be replaced. So we really thought through this as how can we make sure every part of town touches some of the funding to make sure everyone gets access to the projects that are being proposed. Next, we want to build the infrastructure to support businesses. Once again, access, street capacity, and making sure that we have utilities. And then also install infrastructure to promote smart growth within the community. If you think about it, there's still about 40-some% of our city that's left to be developed. And if a property owner comes to us and they want to put housing on a piece of property that's zoned for that, the city just can't tell them no. And so we've gone out through our comprehensive plan process. Now they have to comply with our zoning regulations, but we're making sure that where there is the potential for growth, that we're trying to address the fact that they have the utilities that are there, or the streets will accommodate that type of development. We also took a look at where the potential is for additional schools. The school district for Broken Arrow got approval several years ago for about $370 million through the voters, through the general obligation bond package for additional schools. We work with the Broken Arrow School District to make sure that we know where their schools are going to go, so we can make sure that they have, the parents and the buses can get good access to their schools. The fourth is we want to make sure we try to remove physical barriers in the community and promote healthy and active lifestyles. We're actually proposing and improving walkability throughout the entire community with more trails. As I mentioned in number 4, we have a lot of sidewalks in our community that don't connect. For some reason, I don't know why, but you can walk on a sidewalk and it'll stop, and the next thing you know, four blocks later, it'll pick back up. I get a lot of complaints about that, and where we can afford it and the topography will allow, we're going to try to connect those sidewalks so we can get folks to walk a little bit more around the community. We also want to have funds in there, about $2.8 million, to maintain the existing infrastructure, make sure sidewalks are safe, make sure they meet ADA and handicap accessibility. That's very important that everyone have that access to be able to walk on our sidewalks. And through the efforts of our Parks Director and his team, we've identified some additional areas we'd like to put in trails and walking paths to make sure that everyone has that ability to get out and to recreate. And then finally is create opportunities to be transformational in how we serve our citizens. One of the items that's in the package is going to be infrastructure funds for an innovation district. What Broken Arrow has realized right now is that what we're known for is quality jobs, a safe community, and great housing. Quality jobs, safe community, great housing, and I'll add our public school system to that as well. Well, by creating an innovation district over the next 10 years, I think that we can attract more high-paying, quality jobs to our community through working with some of the local private businesses that have an interest in investing, working with the school district, NSU, Tulsa Tech, TCC. We all want to create a collaborative so where we can make Broken Arrow an innovation hub where people will come. Well, to do that, you need infrastructure. And so we'd like to ask the voters for approval of some funds for roads, for stormwater, for curbing, for lighting, in order to basically help facilitate the possibility of creating those innovative type positions within our community. I'd also like to mention is that in the package, and I've gotten a couple questions about this, is that there is funds being requested for city facilities. And that's something that's relatively new to the city, to have to go in for the fleet maintenance building to have to make repairs. Public safety facilities, nobody ever has a problem with public safety facilities. What I found out is nobody likes a new city hall, okay? But we're talking about fleet maintenance, we're talking about stormwater management, we're talking about our streets, our utilities. Those people need facilities that meet their needs, and right now many of our facilities, they're aged and they are basically becoming antiquated, and so we'd like to have the voters approve some funds to make improvements to extend the life of those facilities, in some cases do some additions to be able to accommodate the fact that we're such a growing community. We need the best available that we can afford to make sure those employees that come to work that are out there day and night serving us, as they've got some good facilities to work in. There's a couple other things in the package, as I mentioned earlier, there is a request to have the voters consider an annex for our senior citizens. Anybody that utilize that facility will tell you that they are basically at capacity and they need additional space because we have so many people that are utilizing that facility. We also have the seniors are looking at the veterans are looking at requests to put some funding together to build a veterans center to basically allow our veterans to gather near the Veterans Park downtown. Also, we have our Community Rose Garden group that is here that is interested. We also have another proposal for the History Museum. So there's a lot of things we're still considering that are still up in the air that we need your input on. Okay, here's where we are in the process. Moving quickly now, I'm going to talk about what we have done to date, where we are now, and what the next steps are. First and foremost, let me just go back here to make sure everyone understands how much time and effort has been put into this. This process actually started about a year ago when I asked all the directors to sit down with their staffs and start thinking about what projects they would like to see in their package. And I give all of them the utmost credit and props for spending the time to look at where they believe their department's going to be in the next 10 years. Then we did a citizen survey last fall where we received well over 2,500 responses, where you saw the feedback earlier, to ask folks what they thought were the priorities for our city. The process actually officially kicked off in January of this year with about a 6-hour special meeting of the council, where they looked at the entire package and gave the council direction, the city administration direction, and said that the bond vote is going to be on August 28th. Now, they still have to actually pass a resolution to do so, but that's what they said. Go out, make sure the public has a chance to weigh in on this, and this is the 4th opportunity prior to actually the council voting, where you have an opportunity to make your comments known about the package. Once again, we had 3 public forums in February. The initial package was around $280 million, and right now it sits at $222 million. So we still have some ways to go in order to get that to be a no tax increase as directed by the City Council. Okay, where we are right now. Tonight, this will be the final public comment forum before City Council considers and approves the package for your consideration on August 28th. The City Council and myself cannot tell you how to vote. We can't encourage you to vote. We can only give you the education on what the projects are in the package. There will be a group that will probably put out support the package, but as far as public officials, all we can do is provide you with information that you're informed when you go into the polling places in late August. Once again, we need to remove about $11 million from the package, and this is very important that you take a look at the projects that are above the cut line and those that are below the cut line, because in the next week or 10 days I've got a very difficult task of presenting the council a package that includes something under $211 million should council decide to go for the full 10 years. Okay, once again, the goals are tonight is we want to continue to learn from you what projects you believe are important that's being proposed. Once again, nothing is etched in stone yet. The council has not passed the ordinance, so if there is a project that is important that you'd like to have the city consider, there still is time, because council doesn't actually have to pass the ordinance with the package until early June. So we still have a little bit of time. We're not at the 11th hour yet. And once again, we definitely need your input, because there will be some projects, unfortunately, about $11 million worth, that won't make the package in August. Here are the next steps. We will finalize the package next month. The City Council will vote on the final package in May or June, and the way they do that is they'll pass a resolution calling for the election, and then they'll pass an ordinance that's got the different packages with the language that the voters will actually review and vote on in August. And they'll do that by way of an ordinance. We'll make that ordinance available on our website, or if anyone wants a copy of it, to take a look at it, because if the voters approve that, that's what legally we are bound to complete those projects. Okay, public education phase. Once the City Council decides exactly what's going to be in the package, we will put a comprehensive public education campaign together to provide more specific information about the projects that are in the package. And that's going to be done by going to different organizational meetings, coming to coffees, community groups, anywhere somebody needs for us to be. Myself, the council, or one of the staff members will certainly try to be there to help you understand exactly what's being asked for. And then there will be an actual document that will come out to all homes in Broken Arrow that lists the projects that are going to be included in the bond package, and everything leading up to the public vote on August 28th, 2018. The next thing I wanted to mention, because I get lots of questions about this, is that right now the current millage that the city has for general obligation debt service is 16.46. So when you look at your tax bill every year, there is a portion of your tax bill that goes to the city of Broken Arrow, and the amount you pay is calculated on that 14.6. And the council basically said there's not going to be any change in that millage rate. So we had to craft this package around making sure that it's not a tax increase by looking at debt that was previously issued, rolled off, and the growth that we're having in the community. And right now, we're projecting about 3.5 to 3.75% growth in our community. In between that growth and with bonds that are rolling off, that's how we can afford to do this package without changing the millage. Now, here's a quick example. If you live in Tulsa County and you're in the Broken Arrow Public School District and your home is worth $100,000, you'd currently pay about $1,309 per year in property taxes. $168 of that goes to the city for general obligation, bond repayment, or retirement of debt. So a very small portion of your property taxes goes to the city. The city, despite some people not understanding this, or it's not aware, the city gets no property taxes for operations. Everything that we get to pay for the police, the fire, the utilities, all comes from sales tax, utility revenues, and other revenue sources that we have. Not one dime of your property taxes goes to pay for any operations in the city of Broken Arrow, or any city in the state of Oklahoma, as a matter of fact. Let's talk a little bit about the details of the proposed package. First off, just real quickly, I mentioned how the projects were identified, so we can move forward, Jennifer. The survey results, just to mention, there was a broad satisfaction among city services. Infrastructure projects are supported by more than 90% of the community, and the community recognizes a need for investments in public safety. So if you see the package, you will notice a lot of it's built around the public community's response to the survey. Now, looking at the package just briefly, is right now there are 95 projects totaling $222 million. 95 projects at 221. I put it in a pie chart to give you an idea of exactly what that looks like. And as you can see, is that there's 5 propositions. Now there'll be one more proposition. There'll actually be 6, because there's about $500,000 in a voter-approved road improvement near the police station, fire station, that the wording on it didn't say the right street, so we're going to have to ask the voters if they want to reappropriate that to be spent on that street. So there'll probably be 6 questions on the ballot for the voters to consider, and this is the current breakdown. Let me talk about that just a little bit more specifically here. Just about ready to wrap up. First and foremost, public safety. There is a total of $20,600,000, or 9.3%, including 8 projects. In our Parks and Recreation, as we call quality of life, there's almost $19 million It represents about 8.4% with a total of 25 projects. Our city facilities, $24.3 million or 11%, a total of 10 projects. Stormwater improvements, $14.2 million represents about 6.4%. Some of the stormwater projects will be done in connection with the road widenings and the upgrades that we're going to be doing, but there are 13 specific projects that we've included for the voters' consideration at this time. And then finally, this is the big enchilada right here, street and roads, $144,170,000, representing 65%, which is a total of 39 projects. We heard from the folks, from what I was told from the second and third, and I attended the first public forum, streets and roads is what the community said was the most important to them. Now this is very consistent because if you look at the total packages the voters have approved over the years, about 56% of all funds that the voters have approved through the packages have been dedicated to streets and roads, either expansions or maintenance. And so this is a little bit higher than that because we've got a lot of needs in our community. So therefore, the council said, and the voters confirmed that, is we're going to be asking for a large chunk of the package to be dedicated to street and roads. Okay, here's the overview. Basically, in order to keep this a no tax increase and keep the rate at 16.4, obviously we can only issue so much debt each year. And so this is going to be a phased approach over 10 years. And if you look at this chart right here, it shows you, and the red is if we did a 5-year, or 7-year, or the 10-year, is we're not going to be able to issue all $210 million in 1 year because we'd have a huge tax increase and you'd all storm City Hall. And so basically is that in order to keep it a no tax increase, we can only issue a certain amount of money each year. Now, based on the fact that I talked about it takes multiple years to build a road, we have gone through the process of looked at what projects do we need to do engineering this year, right-of-way acquisition this year, and construction this year to try to maximize, because as you can see, in the first couple of 4 years, it kind of goes up and down because we still have debt service payments to make on other projects. However, starting in year 2023, you can see that the amount that we can borrow actually goes up. So our plan is to try to get as much of the preliminaries out of the way, and so when we start widening the projects, I should say we start having a lot more money, we will have those plans on the shelf, right-of-way acquired, and we can go to construction. And that was why I mentioned early on about the fact that there's so much going on in our city right now. That's because 3, 4, 5 years ago, when voters approved those packages, we've been doing the planning, we've been doing the land acquisition, and we actually been building the specifications to go out to bid. So this is an ongoing process that takes multiple years. Just like every street light, or excuse me, new street signal costs $250,000, it seems like every road project takes 3 years, sometimes 4. You've got to remember, folks, some people won't just give you their right-of-way. They want you to pay them for them, and honestly, we should. Some projects have storm sewer, some will require bridge replacements. So it takes quite a bit of while to get through the acquisitions, plans, and specs to do it correctly. And so this is why it's good to go to the voters every so often and ask for their approval, because we just don't want to stop, because then you could actually put yourself back 5 to 6 years if you're not in that planning process and getting to the point where you can go to construction. And then the 2 more slides here is that, once again, the stations over here, we have our engineering construction working all the way around the room to stormwater, all the way to public safety. We've got a lot of our officers and our fire leadership here. So folks, we also have our seniors, we have our veterans, we have the Rose, Commemorative Rose Garden. Got a lot of folks here that want to answer your questions. And so please engage with them, because I think that's important. Find out exactly what they're thinking. We have scribes at all of the tables to write down your comments, and we will look at those, and we will get to the point just within a couple of weeks based on your input. My staff and I will be presenting to the City Council. We will make sure the public is aware when those meetings are going to be, when Council is going to consider that. So should you choose to come to City Hall and learn more about exactly what's approved, we would love to have you. So with that, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and that's the end of the presentation. At this time, please feel free to mingle among yourselves and among the department directors. And on behalf of the Mayor and Council, thank you for coming out.